and there are hardly a handful of countries, even if those who are speaking up on Kashmir. So I think it would be correct. The issue is largely now, to a great extent, dependent on how the Kashmiris are going to fight it out and the nature of the resistance there. The topic for this afternoon is scrapping of Article 370. Article 370, as you know, was a part of the Indian Constitution that gave to Kashmir a special status. Part of that was allowing the Kashmiris, giving them the right to have their own assemblies, and within those assemblies, one of the key rights they had was to determine the nature of citizenship in Jammu and Kashmir. So who could be a citizen, who could buy property, who could be living there. So what we saw in 2019, the scrapping of this clause in the Constitution, Article 375, by the 370, by the Modi government. It was no surprise, it should not have been a surprise, because the BJP was saying repeatedly that this is going to be the objective. They managed to not only scrap it, they also were able, or perhaps the Indian Supreme Court was able to then give a judgment in December 2023, which is less than 6 months ago, in which it was a unanimous decision saying that the scrapping was legitimate, and nobody could question the fact that the special status of the Kashmiris had ended. Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir was divided into two territories. One was Ladakh, and the other was Jammu and Kashmir, and both these were going to be ruled directly by the Union. We have two other developments as we speak. One is that since the scrapping of Article 370, you have elections being held for the first time in the areas which constituted Jammu and Kashmir. The first phase has taken place in Udhampur on the 19th of April, and it's going to be in 5 phases. And by mid-May, end of May, the election in all the territories will have taken place. So this is the second thing. The first is that the Supreme Court has justified and legitimized and said that this was the right thing to have done, and that nobody could question it any longer. And finally, of course, the big question of what are the policies that countries, and specifically Pakistan, has on the question of Jammu and Kashmir. As you well know, that we have been hearing the finance minister, the former finance minister, and now the foreign minister talking about starting trade with India. So the question I think that will be raised, and an important one, is what is Pakistan's Kashmir policy going to be? So we will come back to these questions subsequently during the discussion as well, and in the winding up. But I would like to introduce, but especially would like to introduce the two guests, the two panelists we have on going to be speaking on this subject. We have Victoria Schofield, who is a well-known and great scholar on Kashmir. It's something that Ms. Schofield has worked on and has written books on the subject and follows it very diligently, very closely, and may I say it's close to her mind and heart both. Is that correct? So, but her scholarship is really one that is work of great reference and great value, and anybody studying the subject cannot but read the works that Ms. Schofield has produced. And we have with us Mr. Tariq Naqash, who is a Kashmiri and covers for the Dawn and I'm sure other publications the issues of Jammu and Kashmir and broadly the questions of policy, etc. And I was just telling Mr. Naqash that I just read his last report, I think less than a week ago in the Dawn, in which he mentions how the Kashmiris on this side of the LOC in AJK are very restive and very concerned about what's happening on the other side in Indian occupied Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir. Without much ado now, I'd like to go to first Mr. Naqash as a Kashmiri to tell us how he sees the situation on the ground on both sides with reference to Article 370. Remember that India is strategically a very important country and getting more and more important as far as the West is concerned. And we have seen Gaza and we see how what matters and what doesn't matter in the callous world of interstate relations. So the challenge is huge for those who believe that the Kashmiris deserve their right to self-determination. So over to you, Mr. Naqash. Thank you.
नहमदु व नसल्ली अला रसूलिल करीम अम्मा बाद फ़ौज़ बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम. Worthy moderator and my fellow panelists, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. First of all, I would like to tell you that I am speaking to you as direct victim of Kashmir conflict. I have told earlier in an earlier conference here that I come from a divided family. My father was born in Srinagar, I was born in Muzaffarabad, and my grandfather lays buried in Srinagar, and my father lays buried in Muzaffarabad. So we have not been able to, he was not able to see his parents after he migrated to this part of Kashmir. Anyway, let's come to the point. After the lapse of just 100 more days, we'll be marking another Yom-e Istisal, or Day of Exploitation, on the occasion of the 5th anniversary of the Government of India's arbitrary and illogical, unreasonable and unconstitutional decision, whereby the state of Jammu and Kashmir that had existed in this form for at least 175 years was stripped of its special status under the Indian Constitution, and it was bifurcated into two union territories. The outrageous move was shocking for everyone on both sides of the line of control and elsewhere in the world, but it had also upset those Muslim Kashmiri politicians who are said to have a soft corner for India and who are dubbed as pro-India by others. Because they too had to face embarrassment, house arrests and other coercive measures for expressing apprehensions about this decision. But the treatment meted out to the freedom-seeking anti-India Kashmiris was the worst. And it cannot be encompassed in a small sitting where we are sitting today. The repression they faced after and on the eve of August 5, 2019 move, I believe is unparalleled in the post 1947 history of Jammu and Kashmir. Let's be clear, what is happening in India occupied Jammu and Kashmir transcends mere human rights violation. It constitutes crimes against humanity. Imagine a place where rape is being used as a weapon of war, molestation of women is used as a weapon of war with impunity. Imagine a place where humans are tied to the bonnets of military vehicles to be used as shields, and the perpetrators of these heinous crimes get scot-free. In fact, human rights violation is too small a word to describe the scale of atrocities being endured by the people of Jammu and Kashmir behind an iron curtain. You will be surprised to know that I have visited Jammu and Kashmir twice on through international border and once through the Trans-LOC bus service. And I have a lot of friends there in the journalist community. And we used to exchange information prior to this move. And you'll be surprised to know that they do not exchange pleasantries with me. because of fear of persecution by the Indian authorities. Any journalist having any connection on this side of the LOC is summoned at the police station and treated under draconian laws. Since August 5, 2019, the Indian government has imposed many draconian laws, curbs and restrictions on traditional and social media, due to which the most of Indian government's abhorrent acts are not reaching the outside world. Nevertheless, according to data compiled by a Kashmir-based organization, India has killed as many as 859 Kashmiris, 17 of them women, over the last 5 years. And this rendered 67 women widow and 184 children orphans. And the rest are more than 20,000. And the detainees include APIC leaders, journalists, rights activists, and students. Ladies and gentlemen, many of you would be thinking that August 5, 2019 moved just divested Jammu and Kashmir of statehood. No, in effect, the loss was far bigger than that, and it started unfolding in the days and months that followed it. Amid virtual strangulation of Kashmiri rights activists, political activists, social activists, New Delhi has been ceaselessly carrying out one after the other step to rob the Kashmiris of their land, identity, and livelihood opportunities. This is exactly what Israel has done and is doing to the Palestinians. Before going any further, it is important that I briefly enumerate a few steps according to their severity, their horrifying impact on the disputed region and its inhabitants. According to reports compiled by till late last year, of some 334 local laws, India repealed 164 and 167 were adapted according to the Indian constitution. And 800 new laws were introduced to strengthen India's occupation of the territory. The major one, the major blow under the new sets of laws came in early 2020 when the world was grappling with global pandemic, COVID. It was the grant of domicile rights to the Indian citizens. You all know that the property and citizenship in Kashmir is restricted to the Kashmiris under a law which was introduced not by the administration after 47. It was introduced by the Hindu ruler of the state, Maharaja Hari Singh, in 1927 on the request of the Dogras which came from his clan of Jammu and Kashmiri Pandit community. So this 35A, now the Indian government was thinking that this is a hurdle in their plans to grab to change the demography of the state. Under the new law, those who had lived in Jammu and Kashmir for 15 years were eligible to get domicile certificate. Those who had studied there for 7 years, had done their metric and intermediate exam from there, were eligible. And those Indian government officials who had served in Kashmir for 10 years, their children were also made eligible even if they had not lived there for state. Then came the land grabs. In October the same year, India allowed any of its citizens to buy land in occupied Kashmir, also in a move to dilute the Muslim majority character of the region. Furthermore, the new laws allowed government acquired land to be utilized by any official institution for industrial commercial purposes or disposed of to any Indian citizen. Additionally, the Indian Army was allowed to designate any area as strategic for military purposes and acquire it. And all of you know that recently the UP government has acquired a piece of land in the heart of Kashmir to build Maharashtra Bhavan. This is the first step towards that goal. Delimitation Commission. It was, as it was not enough, in May 2022, a three-member delimitation commission constituted by the government of India made its controversial report public, whereby the assembly constituencies in Jammu, which is the stronghold of BJP, were increased from 37 to 43. In 6 new seats were given to Jammu, while the number of seats in Kashmir Valley went up only one notch, that is from 46 to 47. This was despite the fact that the population of Jammu is 1.5 million less than the population of Kashmir Valley. Jammu's population is 5.3 million and Kashmir Valley's population is 6.8 million according to 2011 census. Then in December last year, just 5 days before the validation of the controversial decision by the India Supreme Court, Indian lower house of Parliament approved two laws whereby five reserved seats were given to the Jammu Kashmir Assembly. In addition to those 90 seats, these 5 seats, two of these seats were Kashmiri migrants. The word was used migrants, but in fact it was for Kashmiri Pandits. And one was for the person displaced from Azad Jammu and Kashmir, those who had migrated to the Indian held side in 1947, and two for women. These 5 seats meant that they tilt the balance of votes towards the party ruling India. This was meant. So, voting rights. Before the abrogation of Article 370, the voting rights were vested only in permanent residents who are otherwise known as state subjects. But as delimitation was not enough, in August 2022, India announced to allow voting rights to any Indian citizen living temporarily in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. This move is aimed at adding 2.5 million more votes, mainly the Indians temporarily residing in the region, the army personnel, government and private sector employees, migrant workers, on top of 7.6 million existing voters. These are a few major draconian steps. If I start listing other measures under India's settler colonial agenda, I would end up consuming the entire time of this session. But nevertheless, I would like to list just briefly. There are attacks on Kashmiris' religious and cultural identities. You all know the Fairan was attacked. Wazwan, our traditional Kashmiri cuisine, was attacked by by the maker of this India Files. And then there was denial of travel to Kashmiris. You know, many Kashmiri journalists have been denied. Even they are offloaded at the airports. Passport is not given to them. Denial of livelihood and employment opportunities. The license of mines is now given to all Indian companies. Earlier, the Kashmiris would get those licenses. Then replacement of Urdu. Urdu is still official language in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. It has been replaced by Hindi, and then change of the historical name of Kashmiri places. Ladies and gentlemen, may I also remind you, while the media in Kashmir, the local state-based media, was struggling hard for its survival, the Indian government came up with a new media policy in June 2020 to take full control of local media, whereby government officers have now authority to decide what is a fake news and what news has to be published. Practically, the Kashmir-based media, I also used to work for Greater Kashmir, which is the largest daily of Kashmir Valley. And believe you me, I would cover anti-India demonstrations in that paper. But now, all those papers have literally become Indian propaganda mouthpieces. They can only publish the press releases or the news items about weather or tourism, etc., etc. Since August 5, 2019, as many as 12 government employees have also been sacked by the Indian government on the charges of being sympathetic to freedom movement and threat to the India's security, without explaining them what were the basis of their dismissal, and without giving them any fair chance of representation. There were hopes that India's Supreme Court would undo the arbitrary move, and resultantly all the steps taken in pursuit of it would stand nullified. But alas, all those hopes were dashed when the 5-member bench endorsed the move in a prejudiced decision delivered on December 11 last year. The bench held that the region's special status had been a temporary arrangement and that its removal in 2019 was constitutionally permissible. Surprisingly, the same India's Supreme Court holds in April 2018 that Article 370 of the Constitution has acquired permanent status through years of existence, making its abrogation impossible. The same Supreme Court had held a year before the abrogation. Now, all said and done, the big question still remains there, that what is the way forward for the Kashmiris and for the government of Pakistan, because I honestly believe that freedom of Kashmir is more to the benefit, who will go more to the benefit of Pakistan than the Kashmiris themselves, because Kashmir is the source of the rivers that render your lands fertile and many other things. One way forward is, in my view, is to ensure that Kashmir is not erased from public memory just because India is saying that the situation in the occupied territory has been normalized. The so-called normalcy in Kashmir is nothing but brutal silencing of the Kashmiris. Kashmiris have the right to self-determination as long as the UN resolutions hold that. And that process should not be sidelined. But this needs an extraordinary effort on the part of the government and institutions of Pakistan. We need to repeatedly emphasize the Committee of Nations, before the Committee of Nations, that abrogation of Article 370 is negation of all international and bilateral agreements and commitments by the government of India on Kashmir dispute. It is a negation of the UN Charter and the UN resolutions on Kashmir, which should have been a matter of grave concern for all members of the world body. We can also agitate a point that the instrument of accession, which the Maharaja of Kashmir had allegedly signed on in October 1947, and deciding to join India as one between the two sovereign states, has the character of an international treaty. And by revoking Article 370, the Indian government can be interpreted as returning Kashmir to the pre-agreement status as a sovereign state. As far as Azad Jammu and Kashmir or AJK is concerned, I don't think with present legal status it can play any substantial role for Kashmir issue at the international level, except trumpeting empty rhetoric for local consumption. At a time when Modi government has committed political and constitutional terrorism, aggressed, occupied and imprisoned the Kashmiri people in the disputed region, the AJK leadership has a higher burden of responsibility. First and the foremost step would be to rehabilitate the AJK government in a just and equitable manner so that it could effectively discharge its responsibilities assumed under the UNCIP resolutions. The AJK leadership desperately needs to look beyond its avidity for power in Muzaffarabad, rise above their petty political interests, and put their heads together to reach a unanimous course of action to prove their commitment to the cause. I wish, sorry, I wish Raja Farooq Haider, our former Prime Minister, would have been here today. He was earlier supposed to be key speaker today, and we could have asked him that what made him flee the country at a time when India abrogated the special status, at a time when people expected that there would be massive demonstrations in Muzaffarabad, but the leadership of this side of Kashmir went into hiding. So could have asked them. That's why I say that this leadership desperately needs to look beyond its petty political interests and their lust for power in Muzaffarabad to prove their commitment for the cause. More than 6 decades ago, excuse me, more than 6 decades ago, a selfless Kashmiri leader who used to live in this town where I am speaking to you had come up with the ideology of recognition of AJK government as the successor revolutionary government of the deposed Maharaja of the erstwhile princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, so that this government could take the charge of freedom movement and could represent the Kashmiris in the outside world itself. But alas, he had to take flak for his ideology by his opponents as well as by the mighty establishment in Pakistan. Today, 60 years down the line, I find many takers of his ideology on our side of Kashmir as well as across the LOC. And I have heard leaders appreciate and advocate the ideology as the only solution as the only way to the solution of Kashmir issue, though they do not take the name of that leader. That's why, therefore, a serious discourse without any prior prejudices is a must to put the AJK government in the driving seat so that Pakistan's advocacy, right? So Pakistan's advocacy in Kashmir becomes genuine and convincing. We have enough of condemnations of India's dreadful moves. We must take concrete steps to address the situation, adhering to the UN framework on Kashmir is paramount because it provides you a roadmap for solution of this issue, and it also defines who can be called the Kashmiris. Since the inception of Kashmir conflict, numerous agreements and negotiations have been attempted by both India and Pakistan, often on the with the intervention. जी नहीं 2 मिनट आखिरी बस 2 मिनट लूंगा मैं आपसे सिर्फ 2 मिनट का मतलब 2 मिनट होगा मैं ये कह रहा हूं कि इंसेप्शन से वी हैव हेल्ड न्यूमरस negotiations or agreements on the with the intervention of the third parties, mainly the UN. Magar peace remains elusive, and but still the UN framework on Kashmir serves as primary guideline for addressing the situation. Therefore, the government and institutions of Pakistan must prioritize this framework in all of their actions and engagements. We must engage the civil societies in Western world to amplify the voices of Kashmiris and garner maximum support for their cause. And this also needs strategic planning and coordination. Any half-hearted or disjointed effort will only serve to the purpose of our adversaries. That's why Kashmiris have suffered a lot, and it's our collective responsibility to prioritize our goal vis-a-vis Kashmir and develop a strategy to work towards the peaceful settlement of this issue. Last but not the least, let me also share strong reservations of the Kashmiris regarding the media, Pakistan's mainstream media, towards their cause, as they think that Pakistani media gives more time to India's film industry than their cause. They regret that while the majority in India's Godi media ceaselessly peddle the fake news fed by their government on Kashmir, the Pakistani media does not have space for their truth. With these words, I beg to leave. Thank you for giving me a patient hearing.